Tonight, we debate 8 Christopher Nolan films. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Debate 8. How are we all doing tonight? Tonight, we're going to have a fun night. If this is your first time here at Debate 8, what we do is we pick a topic and you decide the winner live in a tournament bracket style voting system. It's one of the best things we do all week. It's very exciting. I look very forward to my Wednesday nights because I get to come here and hang out with all you people in the chat and talk movies and vote on movies and just have a great discussion. And tonight's going to be an incredible discussion. We have an incredible filmmaker. That's the topic of tonight. We're doing Christopher Nolan films. That's right. You guys went and voted on the 8 seedings that you wanted for the movies to appear tonight. And guess what? We have ranked them. We're here tonight. We got a tournament bracket and we're going to do it live. Hello to all the people in the chat. I got to say up front, I saw a lot of people talking about The Prestige. I'm sorry. I just got to get it out. Get it out right now. The Prestige is not on the list tonight. Okay. So we can all get that out of our systems. I'm sorry. I'm with you. I like The Prestige, but there's just some really incredible Nolan films. So didn't quite make it, but that's okay. We have 8 other ones. I see a lot of anger in the chat, but that's okay. By the time we get to the end of tonight, you guys are going to vote for a movie that's probably better than The Prestige anyway. So let's bring on our panelists. I don't want to keep them waiting in the green room too long. Both are returning guests, which is amazing. I love when we have returning guests, which means they had a good time the last time. So they're here again. First one up here. Let me make sure the mics are on. First one up is Dan from Daniel Berrios. That's your name, but the self-titled YouTube channel. Daniel, what is up? How are you, man?
Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm from my mother's womb, and it's good to be back. It's good to talk Christopher Nolan, a guy whose movies I've rewatched over the last couple of days and found that I like even a lot more than I originally did, which was a lot. Yeah. So thank you very much for bringing me on again. This is a fun opportunity to catch up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure having you on. I'm glad. And this specifically, I definitely had you in mind when and I know when I messaged you, I was like, I gave you the list and you're like, Christopher Nolan. I said, I knew it. I knew that this guy wanted to come on and talk Christopher Nolan. The other guy that I knew was going to want to talk Christopher Nolan is Elliot from the Movie Files. Elliot, how are you, sir? Welcome back to the show.
Doing good, man. Glad to be back on talking about Christopher Nolan, who I think a lot of people may say in the last 20 years might be the most influential, most impactful director working today. So it's really, really awesome to be here tonight to talk about these films and seeing who ends up being number one.
Yeah, you got a great point. And originally we were trying to do this show around Tenet coming open. And, I think maybe at some point in our lifetime, that movie will come out. Maybe this year, probably next year, 2025. Who knows? We'll eventually see this movie. But we had that. We had the anniversary of Inception, which they were trying to put out in theaters as well. So, it's there's Christopher Nolan in the air, and I can feel it, and I can taste it. And tonight's going to be a great debate. Let's go in and let's take a look at the bracket though, and see what we're dealing with. See the movies we are going to talk about tonight. The first matchup of the first round is going to be the number 1 seed, The Dark Knight, going up against the number 8 seed of Insomnia. The next one will be the number 4 seed Memento going up against the number 5 seed The Dark Knight Rises. Third matchup, Batman Begins, number 3 seed going up against the number 6 seed Interstellar, and rounding out the first round, the number 2 seed Inception going up against the number 7 seed Dunkirk. Man, there's just going to be heavy hitter debates on this one. Daniel, we're going to start with you. We'll start out with the number 1 seed Dark Knight going up against the number 8 seed Insomnia. I'm putting 2 minutes on the clock. How do you feel about this matchup?
Okay, so Dark Knight wins this one. So let's talk about how Insomnia, I think, is really underrated. Watching this one for the first time a couple days ago, I found that it was actually because it's the movie that came out before Batman Begins, right? So I was wondering, okay, what about this movie and maybe Memento would have landed Nolan the job? And I think Insomnia starts tackling a lot of similar themes that Nolan would later on tackle in Dark Knight, mainly this idea of like, is the justice system corrupt, and the difference between justice and morality. And on top of all that, there's this kind of like quick-paced edit crazy style that's going on in Insomnia that I found reflected in maybe some of the Scarecrow scenes in Batman Begins. I found some of the color palette, those like muted browns, were followed into something like that as well. And then, of course, I mean, Al Pacino's great, Hilary Swank's great. I know y'all see the poster, and I kind of wish he wasn't on it, but Robin Williams. I love that as an example of metatextual casting. Like, you cast one of the sweetest guys of our childhood to be this villain. Like, and I wish they would have kept that a secret, but I don't think there's any way to do it. But I mean, Dark Knight, one of the best action movies ever made, one of the best superhero movies ever made, one of the best characters in Heath Ledger's Joker. You've got an all-star cast. It's one of those movies that's so good it's self-explanatory. So yeah, in this one, it's unfortunate, and I hope all of you see Insomnia if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, for me, it's Dark Knight, no question.
Okay, yeah. But it's going to be a hard road for Insomnia to win this first round battle. Let's go to Elliot. Elliot, are you full Dark Knight here, or do you think Insomnia can pull off a major upset tonight? How do you feel about this matchup? 2 minutes for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is being a big sports fan. This would have been a nice, underdog story for Insomnia, because, like Dan said, it's a very underappreciated film by Christopher Nolan. And like you said, Dan, in regards to it being more, it's set the stage for themes that you see within a Batman film, and particularly The Dark Knight. I think of the line with Harvey Dent and Christian Bale at the dinner table. You know, you live to be a hero, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, and kind of seeing that without giving away Insomnia. You know, Al Pacino's character, very reminiscent of control and the position that he's puts himself in. I love the psyche of that film, right? It's not a traditional thriller, bad guy mystery, who is it, Seven type of storyline. It's it's pretty upfront of what's going on, but it's just the mystery aspect of learning more about Al Pacino and his partner and his partnership and everything of that nature. So Insomnia, fantastic film. It's one of the films that is not an original Christopher Nolan movie. It's based on a novel, but it still has that Christopher Nolan-ness to it. And I would love to see Al Pacino and Christopher Nolan team up again in a future film, hopefully. But speaking of Dark Knight, I mean, this is the film, we live in the Marvel age, and hopefully the DCEU can get things started with a future Batman with Matt Reeves. But this was the one that kind of set the stage for a grounded, gritty, psychological, in-your-face, not fantastical superhero films, but a mafia film, right? And everyone brings it up, and it's deservedly so. Heath Ledger, man. When I think of The Dark Knight, I think of Heath Ledger. No disrespect for the incredible Christian Bale and everyone involved, but Heath Ledger's Joker is my favorite Joker. The performance is incredible. Won him an Oscar, obviously, and just kind of set the tone where, I mean, it's always been said, but I think this film says it even more true. Your superhero is only as good as his villain. The movie's only as good as the villain because it presents itself, and that villain, the Joker, yin and yang, Batman, the good versus evil, is just such a phenomenal story. So I hate Insomnia is going to have to take the L, but it's going against The Dark Knight. So
yeah, it's going to be real tough. But again, just like always, it's not up to us, it's up to the people. Oh, wait, hold on. Can't start the poll yet. I got to actually turn the poll on. Oh, God. Every week, I swear, it's always something with me. It's live. We do it. There we go. Okay, poll is now open. If this is your first time watching the show, we vote live here in YouTube in the chat. You don't have to go anywhere else. You do it right here. This is how you vote. If you want to vote for The Dark Knight, do !vote 1 right in the chat. If you want to vote for Insomnia, !vote 8. Remember, there is a space in between the word vote and the number. If you have any questions, just look at how all the regulars here are voting in the chat. Also, Streamlabs will tell you if you voted correctly. So if you don't see Streamlabs tell you that you voted, you did it wrong. You might want to try again. So this look at this matchup. This is a lot closer than I guess that I thought it was going to be. I'm not necessarily overly surprised, but Insomnia is getting a lot of love, and it should. It's such a good movie. Yeah,
it's a great film, and I think it just goes to show you again, this is a really awesome battle because, like I said, a lot of people, it's hard to say, oh, this Christopher Nolan film, he didn't really hit. It's like all his films are pretty great films. So I'm glad that Insomnia got some votes, but it's looking like Dark Knight is taking a commanding lead now.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that it's as close here as it is. Goes to show how good, Pacino is in that movie. I love that that's a performance where he's really getting to let loose and kind of bring back some of that manic Pacino energy.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, real good stuff. Time is up, and it looks like The Dark Knight, not a commanding overt win that I thought it would be, but still nonetheless, The Dark Knight is moving on. So let's go ahead. Let's add that to our bracket. Let's look back at the bracket and see here. Dark Knight moving on with 62% of the vote. Okay, now it's time. I think this one's going to be tough. The number 4 seed Memento going up against the number 5 seed The Dark Knight Rises. Okay, Elliot, we're going to start with you on this one. 2 minutes on the clock. How do you feel about this matchup?
This is a great one. So I've seen all the Christopher Nolan films once, but Momentum is a weak spot, a blind spot of mine. I've only seen it one time, and I want to try to watch it before I got here tonight, but I wasn't able to squeeze it into my schedule. But, I remember Memento and the twist, and, it's without giving too much away, if the end sets up the beginning and just makes it such a great experience. But, obviously, Guy Pearce, great actor, everyone involved in that film. And again, it was before following his official first film. This was like his big break into Hollywood, and just kind of, it's always cool to kind of see those directors kind of first outings. But The Dark Knight Rises, man, I remember this film coming out in 2012, and obviously the controversy kind of surrounding it with some things that was out of the film's hand, with some stuff there. But everyone kind of looking back on it, I think it's a lot of people consider it the weakest of the trilogy. But I'm not gonna lie, guys, this is one of my favorite Batman films. I'm a big fan of Tom Hardy, and we all know the Tom Hardy and Christopher Nolan collaborations thus far. And Bane, man, it's just a menacing character in the mask. And I used to do an impersonation of him. I don't want to embarrass myself tonight, but I'm a big fan of that film. I love the ending, the last scene, just a little kind of with Bruce Wayne and Alfred seeing each other, and it's just such a great ending to a fantastic, one of the best trilogies of all time. But this is a tough matchup. Again, I'm excited to revisit Memento here in the future, and like I said, I love the twist, I love the performances, but The Dark Knight Rises, man, doesn't get enough love for me. It has its flaws. There's some moments in there, it's a little iffy. Batman's recovery of the bat of his back and everything, but it's some really awesome scenes in there. I think of Batman and and Bane talking about, oh, you were raised in darkness, I was born in. I just love all those lines and the performance we get from Tom Hardy. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Dark Knight Rises, so I'm gonna have to go with that one for me personally.
Okay, perfect. Great debate there. Okay, Daniel, Memento, Dark Knight Rises, which one do you got for this matchup? 2 minutes on the clock for you, sir.
Yeah, it's no question, it's Memento. Memento is just one of those movies that I thought was it's one of those movies where you figure out who the killer is halfway through, and then it doesn't even matter. So the movie gets even better than that specific reveal, and it's one of those films that's crafted so immaculately well that I just could not follow where it was going, and that's a good thing. It constantly keeps you on your toes. You question every single person. You literally cannot trust anybody in that film, including Guy Pearce, including Carrie-Anne Moss, and Joey Pants, as they say. You can't really even trust the movie at some point. You think it's working on one way with its rules, and then it totally flips the dime on it. And isn't that something that Christopher Nolan does so well? It's just one of those films that I think took what Pulp Fiction did with the kind of broken structure of a crime movie. And whereas Pulp Fiction, you could ultimately, I think, tell that story, tell Jules's redemption story in a regularly narrative way. With Memento, the way it's structured ultimately carries you to how you feel about Guy Pearce at the end. Like it follows all the way through. It's dealing with reality, it's dealing with truth and memory and all that fancy schmancy philosophical stuff that Christopher Nolan, he spreads like Vegemite on a piece of toast, just lathers it on. So I guess Dark Knight Rises, kind of bloated, and ultimately just felt to me like a weaker version of Dark Knight. So yeah,
Gotcha. So
I don't really
not
have
a
lot
fan.
to say about it, unfortunately.
Not a big fan. So good. We got two opposite sides here. Daniel pulling for Memento, Elliot pulling for Dark Knight Rises. Let's see what the people have to say. Poll is now open. If you want to vote for Memento, do exclamation vote 4 in the chat. If you want to vote for the Dark Knight Rises, do exclamation vote 5 in the chat. Man, I think people are very divided on Dark Knight Rises. I would say generally people probably are more negative than anything, but it's definitely not like across the board that people dislike this movie. So I hear you, but for me it's Memento for sure. Memento was the movie that got me into Nolan, and it was one of his early ones anyway, so of course it was gonna be, but like came out in 2000. I was in film school, and this is like quintessential. Like if you're in film school and this movie came out, like this was the movie that everyone was obsessed with. It blew my mind. It just, the way he crafted it, the whole storytelling, the way he told the story was unbelievable. And so for me, I'm definitely going in and I'm voting Memento. And look, Daniel, this is crushing it. A lot of people I saw in the chat were saying this is his best film. Are you surprised by this crushing defeat here?
That it's his crushing defeat? Not totally. I thought there'd be a lot more Nolan Batman-verse fans in the chat. I haven't seen too many, especially with Dark Knight Rises at least.
Right.
But Memento being his best film is there's definitely an argument there, and we're definitely going to have that later on tonight. If the chat goes the way I think it's going to go, we're definitely going to have that argument. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, Ellie, were you about to say something or no? Were you just holding back there?
Like momentum broke the back of Batman once again here. So yeah.
Yeah, Memento pulling a Bane on Bruce Wayne there. So 78% of the vote, the number 4 seed Memento is moving on. Let's go ahead and add that to the bracket. So there you go. Memento moving on, man. That is going to be a tough second round. Oh man, I can't wait to get to that one. All right, let's go to the next one. The number 3 seed Batman Begins going up against the number 6 seed of Interstellar. Daniel, we're going to start with you on this one. I'll put 2 minutes on the clock. You got the first Batman movie, and to me, a really good space film. How do you feel about this?
Oh, this is the hard one for me. Batman Begins, I remember my parents took me to the theater for this one. It was the only real time it was like me, my mom, and dad together. And it is rough. You could argue Batman Begins is just the better Batman movie. It understands Batman's psyche in a way that Dark Knight, not necessarily that Dark Knight doesn't, but that movie is not about Batman. It's about the Joker. Like, let's be real here. It's a great Joker movie. The one thing I'll say about Batman Begins is some of it can be a little clunky, I guess, in the third act, and the action isn't quite at the best. It's a little too shaky for me. But Interstellar, for me, Interstellar wins it, because it was one of those, I sat in the theater and just had my mind blown the entire time, just because of how technically proficient the damn thing is. And then, of course, Matthew McConaughey crying and about time, and then, it worked for me in a way of like space exploration movies trying to find out the, just the unknown of it all. Be honest, I'm not really a fan of the Ra's al Ghul character in Batman Begins. That's really my big gripe about that movie. And then on top of that, you've got Scarecrow kind of lumped in there. It doesn't really feel like there's like one commanding voice on it. There's just a little bit too much for me. That's what I consider shaky about it. But for Interstellar, I know there's a lot of logic problems, but honestly, I just don't care.
Yeah.
So I love just this scope of it.
Okay, excellent. All right, Elliot, we're going to go with you. I'll reset the timer. 2 minutes. Batman Begins, Interstellar. What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, no, this is a tough one, but there's a film in this particular bracket here that is one of my favorite films of all time. And I'm going to start off with Batman Begins in regards to, we got to remember where Batman was in the state of film. I think the last time a Batman film came out was in '97, and I think it went by the name of Batman and Robin. Didn't end too well there. So Batman was on the kind of downhill on the character on the big screen, and it was Christopher Nolan that resurrected the character, right? And I'm a little against Dan and Daniel regarding Ra's al Ghul, Liam Neeson playing the character. I love the kind of obscureness of picking that character to kind of be the main villain. He didn't go straight to the Joker. He didn't go straight to one of the more popular characters. He went with Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow. So I love that kind of casting and kind of those being the foils of the film. And I'm still waiting to the day. I'm a big horror fan. He gives us hinges of horror throughout his films. And I love the kind of that scene with Batman and Scarecrow when he has the demonic face on. I just love all that. I will say the chemistry between him and Rachel McAdams, or not Rachel McAdams, but Katie Holmes wasn't all there for me personally. That's probably the weakest spot for me, that relationship there. But I love the scene of Bruce at the party, and again, Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is the person that he wants to be. So just seeing him kicking all his friends out, I love it. But I'm going to leave the rest of this time to, again, one of my favorite, if not my favorite film of all time, is Interstellar, guys. This film is a theatrical experience I will never forget. I was immersed in this film. The emotional beats work for me every time. The story between Murph and Matthew McConaughey's character, and the scene when he's on the craft and he sees them aging, the kids come. Timothy Chalamet, a lot of people forget he's in that film, but when he's seeing them growing up and one of the kids die, and just that is so great when he sees Murph as older than him. That it goes back to the scene earlier in the film that, I might come back and you'll be older than me. That film just hits me on so many levels. And Hans Zimmer's score stays as one of my favorite tracks of any film of all time. I love Interstellar.
Wow. That incredible. All right, let's put the poll up. I'm very curious to see how this one goes. Look, there's a lot of Batman lovers in this chat, but there's a lot of Christopher Nolan fans too, who I think possibly could go Interstellar. If you want to vote for Batman Begins, do exclamation vote 3. If you want to do Interstellar, exclamation vote 6. And Elliot, man, and Dan too, I'm with you guys. I'm on board for Interstellar on this one. I'm not sure if it's going to win, but I'm going to vote for it. When I saw this movie with my dad, and usually when we go see a movie together on the ride home, or like when we drop each other off, we'll talk about the movies we just saw and having a good conversation. We left this movie and we didn't like really say anything because we were just still like absorbing and contemplating like what we just watched. It was so incredible. I'm not going to pretend that I understand like a lot of the ending of this movie. I still think I need to watch it like 4 more times to like really grasp some of the stuff that he was doing. But just the emotional ride that you're on, some of it is so soul crushing, and it hits you so hard. So for me, as much as I like Batman, and I actually do really like Batman Begins, I think lately it's gotten a lot more love, especially for the trilogy and everything. A lot of people lately have been like, Batman Begins is actually better than The Dark Knight, which is a little crazy, but some people have that opinion. So I do enjoy that film, but for me, it's Interstellar. But I don't think it really matters. I think we're on the losing end tonight, guys.
This hurts, guys.
I told you. This is a Batman crowd.
This is what I was rooting for, man. Interstellar. The love I have for this film is insane.
Me too. Look, at the end of the day, I'm glad we all got to spill our love for this movie and get it out, because I agree with you. I think Interstellar should have probably won there, but look, it was the 6th seed for a reason. I knew that it was going to have a tough road ahead of it. Ugh. That hurts my soul a little bit. Dan, you look crushed.
I expected, honestly. I knew there's a lot of Batman love for Nolan fans. Yeah, I know.
I still love you, Murph.
Yeah.
I love you.
All right, let's get to our final matchup of the first round. We have the number 2 seed Inception going up against the number 7 seed of Dunkirk. Elliot, we're going to start with you on this one. 2 minutes on the clock. This is a big one, guys.
I just saw Dunkirk the other night for the first time since seeing it in theaters in 2017. And I'll say this, say what you will about, the Inception. We're going to talk about Inception here. I'm so excited to talk about it. But Dunkirk, I think, is his best made film. I sat back and watched the behind the scenes and how he conceptualized this idea, how he came up with it, how the dialogue was scripted, how him and his wife were stranded on a boat for like 6 hours and came up with this idea for this film. Technically, like, this is one of the most like technical achievements that I've seen from him in regards to just the dogfighting scenes with Tom Hardy, the sea, the land, the air fighting sequences. Again, I know there's the big gripe on Dunkirk is the character development, or lack of, I should say, but the film just really works for me on a lot of levels in regards to, I'm not a war guy. I don't seek out war films. It's just not my cup of jam. But this film just hit me on just so many great levels, and just being, you're not doing the traditional, we're here fighting the war. Oh, what's your wife about? This is not the traditional war film. You're watching the event, the entire film. This film is nonstop, literally from the opening scene to the end. You're in the war, you're in the battle, and it's just a phenomenal film. So Inception, even though I think that's his most well-made film, Dunkirk, but Inception is just literally mind-bending. I don't know how else to describe this. It's a dream within a dream. The performances are incredible. I'm very interested in this theory that everyone's bringing up about Tenet maybe being a sequel or somewhere in the same universe as Inception. That would be mind-blowing. But Inception, I mean, it's just the performance by Leo, the idea of how he crafted these characters, where I think Joseph Levitt-Gordon was like the producer in the mindset of how he constructed these characters. Leo's the director of the film. Tom Hardy's the star of the film per se, and just how he came up with these characters and how they kind of make the film the way it is. I just love the lore, the intellectualness of the film, and just how deep and how fantastic the film. And Inception is just that ending is one of the best endings of all time. So yeah, I'm sorry, Dunkirk, but Inception for me on this. With Dunkirk, it's like incredibly made.
Yeah, no, so far I'm feeling everything you're saying right now. Dan, let's go to you. 2 minutes on the clock. Inception, Dunkirk. I know how you're gonna go, but I'll let you say it yourself. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
This hurts my soul a little bit because I love Dunkirk a lot, and I think it's one of those movies where the structure of Nolan's script lets him edit the movie in a way that when he swaps from one part of the story to another, you just keep the tension going. So that clock, that ticking in the back of your head, the idea that war is never, ever over. The way the movie's written and the way the movie's edited just kind of lets you go on that journey. And you really don't need the character development. I mean, it's not that kind of movie. It's about anybody. It's about any person that was tossed in there. There's a reason that they shoot it from so high, and all the violence makes everybody look like ants, because anybody could be in this war. And that's kind of the painful thought about it. But Inception is one of those movies that's like a gobstopper. On every single layer, it's satisfying, because you start out as a heist movie, and then you get this cool cerebral sci-fi, and then you get the psychological thriller, and ultimately you get this really sad romantic story in the middle, and every part of that works. Every part of that, again, kind of folds on top of itself, just like Paris folding on top of itself, to make a great, fun, thoughtful experience. It's this idea that Christopher Nolan makes 2.5-hour vocabulary lessons for slightly less common words, and he's like the big budget Schoolhouse Rock. Like, he makes this stuff so palatable and so entertaining that it's just impossible to ignore. Inception is just one of those movies where every single thing about it works.
Inception's another one of his films that like took me a few times to really like grasp it. But look, the brain doesn't always work so well with the Nolan films, but I get there eventually. But it's one of those films that he's got a filmography of things that are so layered, you got to watch it multiple times anyway. So I don't feel so bad about myself when I don't understand it. So let's see what the people have to say. I think I know how this one's going to go. I think this might be a quick vote here. It's probably going to be very, very high for Inception, but we'll see. Inception, if you want to vote for that film, do !vote 2 in the chat. If you want to vote for Dunkirk, do !vote 7. Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. And I'm with you, Elliot. A very well-made film. I did enjoy Dunkirk. It's not one of my favorites. I'm not gonna lie. It's not one of my favorites. But Inception is the number 2 seed for a reason. This movie is. I feel like it just gets better and better every time you watch it. You just see something new as well. And you're right. The performances of everybody Leonardo DiCaprio is a perennial all-star actor. Literally just about, I mean, I would say just about everything he touches, but I can't think of one thing that like he touches that's not great, or at least he is not great in it. You know what I mean? So, what an incredible performance. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is great. I'm kind of hit or miss with him sometimes, but like I think he crushes it in this movie. You know, credit to Nolan on that, because you know, half the job of a director is getting the best performances out of their actors, and this absolutely he did that for sure.
Hey, I'm just curious on the whole Tenet, Inception, same universe sequel. Yeah, something you guys would be on board for, something that's just, you know.
Dan, I'll let you go first.
What do you guys think?
No, please, God, no. I don't need a franchise made out of Inception. I don't need this weird, like, I like Inception as a singular story, as just its own idea. I mean, it makes sense considering, you know, Nolan's playing with, I guess, similar physics bending ideas, but like if I see any hint of like Dominic Cobb coming back in Tenet, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of Unbreakable, and how when Glass came out, they were like, oh, guess what? This is part of the universe. So it's like sort of like a back-ended kind of thing. So I guess, I don't know. We'll see about it. 90% of the vote. Inception is moving on. Let's check the bracket. Man, that's a crusher. Okay, so we went chalk, but we got the four, I think, best films, or except for Interstellar. I'm a little bitter about that, but we got four great films moving on to the next round. But before we do, I just want to remind everybody, look, I know some people may be questioning, like, how do we come up with the seeds, or how do we get these seeds numbers? Well, I used to do it, but then a few weeks ago I said, I'm tired of getting yelled at by the chat on what the seeds are, so now I leave it up to your hands. So here's what you got to do. If you want to get involved with the show and you want to vote on next week's seedings, go ahead, go to this site here, rank.fanjecture.com. You can go to there, or you can go to Fanjecture on Twitter. I have it as a pinned thing. Next week's show is Fox X-Men films. Okay, so we got X-Men, X2, X-Men First Class, The Wolverine, Days of Future Past, Deadpool, Logan, Deadpool 2. We got some great films that we're going to talk about next week. So again, if you want to get involved and help with the seedings and see what they're going to be, go to rank.fanjecture.com or go to Twitter @fanjecture. It's the pinned tweet. Just go ahead and do your seedings, do your votings, and then we'll see what it is next week. Okay, here we go. Let's get into it. Can
I say something real quick,
Yes,
Adam?
Please, go for it.
Hey, and also for everyone that's in the chat, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Adam, I'm a huge fan of yours, man. I love this bracket that you do every week, man. So we need to get this channel up to 300 subscribers sooner rather than later, man. I'm such a big fan of your content, man. Just want to say that real quick.
Well, thank you. It's humbling when I hear stuff like that. I do it for fun, because I just want people to like have an outlet to like do this kind of stuff, and so it's nice to hear that people actually like enjoy doing it, for sure.
Yeah,
so
man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Daniel hates me, which is fine. It's totally cool. I get it.
He's okay.
Yeah,
like, he's fine. Make him work for his subscribers, then he'll be the best he could possibly be. Forge him in steel. Don't.
I can't get handed too easy. Like it can't happen. I get it. I understand. I got to work hard. I'm with you, Dan. All right, let's get to the first matchup of the second round. We have the number 1 seed Dark Knight going up against the number 4 seed Memento. Dan, I don't envy you for going first, but you have the task, my man. I'm gonna put 2 minutes on the clock, or actually no, we're doing 90 seconds this time. 90 seconds on the clock. Dark Knight, Memento. How do you feel about it?
This is really, really hard. We're splitting hairs here. It's as simple for me as this. There are more things in Memento that I love than I love in Dark Knight. Just everything about Memento to me works. The structure, the acting, the cinematography, just every single thing about it works. Whereas you can make the argument that Batman Begins is, again, a better Batman movie than The Dark Knight is. You could argue Christian Bale is not giving like 110% in the role, and really the whole thing just rides on the Joker's character and how cool he is, and how, you know, he slowly starts to convince us that his way might be the better way. But to me, there's just so much stuff in Memento that I absolutely unabashedly love, that, hey, you gotta give it to Memento.
Okay, going Memento. Elliot, how do you feel about Memento Dark Knight? 90 seconds for you.
Yeah, like I said up top, you know, Memento, definitely a blind spot. I got to rewatch this film because Daniel just got me so excited to revisit this film. And like I said, I remember the twist and the structure in the film, and I think that's something that stuck with me. You know, this film came out in 2000, was the filmmaking and everything that the film had to offer there in regards to the reveal and everything of just the structuring of it. Just when you see something different, it always sticks with you. But when it comes to The Dark Knight, again, guys, I have to say this again. When it comes to where we're at in the superhero realm, The Dark Knight is a film that all these filmmakers, I love being the Russo brothers, but they have taken some inspiration from what Christopher Nolan did in Dark Knight. I love what we're getting with some of these more, you know, Zack Snyder looking up to what, you know, coming on with Man of Steel, taking a lot of inspiration from Christopher Nolan. When you're that influential in the industry that is dominating the Hollywood landscape, when it's based on one film that came out almost 12 years ago, that says a lot about that film as a superhero film. Again, I know we talked about it's a Batman film in regards to Joker, really still in the light, and that just goes to the great performance. And again, I'm a big villain guy, so I'm always rooting for the villains regardless, but I love what The Dark Knight does. It's something that we will continue to remember for the next 10 to 15, 20 years. In every Batman film, including Matt Reeves and his new trilogy, and whoever takes up the mantle after he's done, everyone will always try to compare Batman films to the golden standard, which is The Dark Knight. So I'm going with The Dark Knight on this one, guys.
Wow. Okay. That's both compelling arguments. Let's leave it up to the people. Let's start this poll. If you want to vote for The Dark Knight, do exclamation vote 1. If you want to do Memento, exclamation vote 4. I'm very, very curious to see how this one goes. This one's extremely tough for me. Like I said, Memento was the one that started it all for me, and I know people absolutely love this film.
Dead heat.
It is. I think it's going to go by one vote. I'm pretty sure that whoever's going to win. Did you guys vote yet? Don't forget. Oh man, I don't know. I think honestly, I have to lean Dark Knight. I think. Because here's why. Because as I was rewatching these films, I was definitely engrossed in Memento, but I rewatched The Dark Knight again today. Just like I had it on in the background. I'm doing work, and I kept like stopping and like stopped doing my work, and I just like every 5 seconds I'm just like staring at the screen, like so engrossed. It's so much more than just a superhero film. There's like so much drama in it, and the way that he's able to craft these intense conversations with people, between people, just has you so locked in. I gotta say, I'm leaning Dark Knight, and I guess it's just by the slightest edge, man. Dark Knight is pulling ahead. We got 10 seconds left, but it looks like it's gonna be 58%. Man, look, I gotta say, I'm a little surprised that The Dark Knight hasn't been crushing it. Supposedly this is everyone's, generally there's a lot of conversations, but a lot of people's favorite superhero movie of all time, and let alone just superhero movie, but just like movie in general. So I'm surprised it's not like crushing it, but hey, it does win. Time is out. Memento unfortunately just could not hang on. The Joker took him out. The Dark Knight is moving on. Elliot, are you surprised by this?
No, I mean, again, this is one of the biggest films in the last, like I said, 12 to 15 years in the superhero and the genre, which is dominating Hollywood. So it doesn't come to surprise that it was able to pull out the win.
Yeah, it's the number 1 seed, but it squeaked on by, man. It's been having a tough road. So we'll see what happens when we get to the finals, if it can hold on. All right, let's get to the second matchup of the second round. The number 3 seed Batman Begins going up against the number 2 seed Inception again. Oh man, I'm so upset. I'm smacking my microphone around. This one I think this one's gonna be hard. Elliot, we're gonna go with you on this one. 2 minutes on the minute. This is the new timer this week, so I keep saying 2 minutes, but a minute and a half. Elliot, Batman Begins, Inception. Where are you going on this one?
Man, it's interesting looking at these the follow-up, what came before, what came after Batman Begins. So we got Insomnia, and then we got The Prestige, and I'm looking at Dark Knight, or the Inception. You had Dark Knight, and you had after that, Dark Knight Rises. So in regards to Batman Begins, I agree that this is probably, as far as Batman films go, is probably the most true and accurate to the comic book Batman that we know in regards to the struggle, the origins, and everything that comes with it, and him, and the tragedy and the psyche of the character. But again, guys, Inception is just one of those films where I think why we love and we talk about Christopher Nolan so much and we praise him is we always talk about original IP. We always talk about, we want to see new ideas. We want to see these movies. And when we say that, we don't normally support them. They normally don't do that well at the box office. So this is the one film I could think of in the last decade that was such an original film, wasn't based on a superhero, wasn't based on a novel. It was an original IP and grossed over $800+ million, which is insane for a sci-fi, intellectual sci-fi. It's not monsters. This isn't a sci-fi fantasy. This is a true sci-fi film with thriller aspects, with drama, and was able to make that much money. Again, I think it's one of the most, I think of the Social Network and this film, Inception, that is one of the most influential films of the last decade. So Inception takes it from me.
Okay, excellent. Let's do 90 seconds on the clock for you, Daniel. Batman Begins, Inception. How do you feel about this matchup?
It's Inception. Again, all of these are relatively simple for me. You got to think about where Nolan was. I mean, he just made arguably one of the best superhero movies on the face of the planet at that point. He had, after this crazy hype about the Dark Knight and the Batman trilogy, he came by with Inception, and it could be argued that Inception even made a bigger drop on the landscape than Dark Knight did in the terms of just how movies are sold. The fact that he got this movie as successful as he did, I mean, definitely you've got the big names and the big cast, and of course he is the director of the Dark Knight. But if we're talking just quality of movie here, Inception, like I said, nothing really, everything works. Like, I love DiCaprio in it. I love Tom Hardy in it. Ken Watanabe is honestly a scene stealer, to be fair. And just the practical work. I think just the technicals in Inception, the practical effects and the work in it, I think, to me, are just miles ahead of Batman Begins.
Yeah. This is gonna be a tough one. I gotta imagine Inception pulls away with this. I'm even gonna maybe predict that it's a runaway, but we'll see. I'm gonna start the poll right now. If you want to vote for Batman Begins, vote 3. If you want to do Inception, vote 2. I gotta say, I think this is a pretty easy one for me. I think I'm definitely going Inception. Look, this movie is absolutely incredible. Nothing to take away from Batman Begins. I already said before that I really enjoy that film. I think it's a great. That I would say Batman Begins definitely more of a superhero film than a Nolan film, if that makes sense. Like, it definitely has Nolan isms, but it was definitely more of a comic book genre type film versus like something like Dark Knight, which is definitely more overtones of a Nolan film. It's got a lot more themes that Nolan really deals with. And Inception, man, this is mind bending. It blows your mind. I still don't know like what the ending is, like if it's a dream, if it's not a dream. I mean, people will be discussing that forever. So it's one that makes you think. So I'm going Inception, not the runaway hit that I thought it was going to be. Dan, I thought this was going to way blow this out. This is actually pretty close. Batman's getting some love here.
Are you surprised? No, I think this crowd digs Batman Begins a lot, and it definitely merits another watch from me to see. Somebody in the chat, just start listing off the reasons why Batman Begins is as good as it is. Just tell me what I should look for in my next watching of it. I will watch it. Just I'm kind of surprised it's not a runaway hit for Inception here.
Yeah, we got Liam Neeson, we got Just Because, so both excellent reasons for sure. It's Batman Begins, period. So we're really getting to the root of what to look for. Let's see. Captain Pennsylvania says, I absolutely would fight Nolan over his Batman movie. So there you go. So much love for the Batman films. I'm not really surprised, but that it got a lot of love here. But Inception is moving on. I should probably hit save. So there we go. All right, let's go ahead and bounce back. Let's refresh our bracket. 1, 2, 3. Inception moving on. Okay, this is the matchup I think that we kind of expected. Number 1 seed Dark Knight, number 2 Inception. They're 1 and 2 seed for a reason. Before we get to the finals, everybody, if I know what you're thinking, you're watching this show, hey, I want to get more of this lovely face and this annoying voice talking about movies. If that's your cup of jam, as Elliot so greatly said earlier, we do a morning show called Morning Movie Brews, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's part of a morning block between this channel, Den of Nerds, and Second Street Marvel, where you get all your movie news starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a hangout. It's chill. We just talk movie news. It's a fun time. If you wake up early and you decide like, hey, I'm going to throw YouTube on, come check out this ugly mug right here, just sitting around talking movies. So that's what we do every morning. But let's get to it. Guys, Dark Knight, Inception, probably considered his 2 best films. I mean, there's a reason why people voted these as the number 1 seed and number 2 seed, and that they survived for this long. I think this is going to be so incredibly hard and so tight as far as voting goes. Dan, we're going to start with you. Putting 60 seconds on the clock. How do you feel about this final matchup?
Simple. Actually, it is simple for me. Inception's just, everything's better in it, and there's nothing bad about Inception. I felt more emotionally moved by Inception. It's just one of those things where, again, everything about that movie works. Dark Knight can be a little too exposition heavy, and it explains itself a little too much for something that I don't necessarily think needs all that much explanation. I think Insomnia tackled a lot of the stuff in Dark Knight with that kind of exposition in a more interesting dynamic than Dark Knight did. Dark Knight has better action. Dark Knight has the bigger spectacle of it. But yeah, I think everything about Inception just works. And so I'm going to reiterate that same thing. And I honestly thought it was going to be Memento versus Inception. I thought it was going to be that.
Nope.
And that was actually a big argument for me. Do I like Memento or do I like Inception more? But for me, Inception got me in the feels.
If it was Memento, Inception, which would you have voted for?
Again, Inception, just because it got me in the feels at the very end of that movie. Like,
gotcha.
Broke my heart.
All right, Elliot, throwing it to you. 60 seconds on the clock. What do you think? Final matchup.
All right. I mean, again, Dark Knight, such a huge influence of where the industry is today. And I mean, what a job. What an incredible film. What a great villain. What are some great performances. What some great lines in there. I mean, it's just a great film altogether. But it's Inception for me on this one. Again, I take originality over existing IP any day of the week. And Inception, again, being a thought out movie. It's written by Christopher Nolan. He does some films where it's him and his brother Jonathan Nolan. This was strictly Christopher Nolan's baby, Inception. Everything about this film from top to bottom is just incredible. Again, you give me an incredible opening act. You set up everything. It's hard to understand what's going on. Second act picks up the action. The third act is just mind-bending. Crazy ending. Again, when it comes to 2010, I think there's no disrespect to the King's Speech, but I thought that if it wasn't The Social Network, Inception should have won Best Picture that year, as well as Christopher Nolan's Best Director. This is the film that I think people will always remember who directed it and what it was about, and that's Inception. I think that's the winner.
Wow. Okay, so both leaning heavy on Inception. Let's post the poll and see what the people have to say. If you want to vote for The Dark Knight, do exclamation vote 1. If you want to vote Inception, exclamation vote 2. I think I gotta be the lone person here, and I think I'm gonna lean Dark Knight. Look, it's still to this day one of my favorite, absolute favorite superhero films. Look, I know, and look, You can't go wrong. To me, you can't go wrong for this. If either one of these win tonight, I think all of us win. Okay. Although we're gonna have to talk about The Prestige in a second because the chat will not shut the hell up about The Prestige. Okay. But for me, I gotta go Dark Knight. Look, the performance of Heath Ledger. Look, I know that this is supposed to be a Batman film, but really it's a Joker movie at its heart. And just the performance that he gives is world class, and it's undeniable that a lot of people like to say, well, maybe he only got the award posthumously after he died, because he died. And I say BS to that. I say this was an incredible performance. Not just for a superhero film, just in general, to get into the mindset of a psychopathic serial killer, and nail it so well in so many different dimensions to that character, really pushes me over the edge to go Dark Knight. But guys, I hate to disappoint you because I know you guys were so high on Inception, but it looks like the Dark Knight with 67% of the vote is gonna move on, and it's going to be our winner. Okay, guys, you have to say one thing positive about the Dark Knight, since you both went Inception. So one thing positive. Elliot, we'll start with you.
Hey, this may be a dream that the Dark Knight won, but no, it's an incredible film. Like I said, look at the landscape of superhero films, and I think a huge inspiration of what we see today is due to the Dark Knight. I mean, we talk about what's going to keep the superhero genre alive, and it's the subgenre. So Dark Knight being not only a superhero film, but it's a drama, it's a thriller, it has all the suspenseful elements. So it takes the superhero and spins it on the head and adds some new elements to it. And this is looks like this is everyone's cup of jam. I'm gonna get a t-shirt with that.
I love it. I love that phrase. Dan, one good thing about the Dark Knight to end this bracket.
Everything with the Joker in the hospital is absolutely perfect.
Yes.
I think it's one of the best portrayals of the Joker, the pure chaos, the comedy, and the evil. There's also that weird anarchy explanation to Two-Face, but I just love when he's walking outside trying to press the button and looks back. And he's genuinely shocked that it's blowing up a lot closer than he thought it was.
And that was ad-lib too, because it wasn't working at first. Yeah. So that's what made it even so realistic and raw. It was so good. It was so funny.
Yeah, for the comments that you get about Dark Knight being a stuffy bro movie, sometimes that's hilarious to me. There's some good bits of comedy in the Dark Knight. Yeah. And
we're hockey bats.
That's come on, man, hockey bats, really?
There's some good stuff in there. Guys, that was incredible. Dark Knight is your winner. It made it through all the way through the bracket. Dark Knight, as voted by you, the audience, is Nolan's #1 film. At least tonight on this, this hot night in July. It could change down in the future. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room here. We have to. People were begging to get your guys' opinions on the Prestige. You don't have to talk. You don't have to talk at length. You could say whatever you want. You could say pass if you want. I'm not going to force you to talk about the Prestige, but either one of you, would you like to make any comment on Prestige Gate?
We talked about it briefly before we went live, and it's the performance. I think you said it perfectly, Adam. It's the performances that I think I remember more so than in the twist at the end. But yeah, seeing Scarlo and seeing Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. I mean, those are phenomenal. I mean, Christian Bale's my favorite actor working today. So I mean, the performances are great. But it just doesn't hit me in the same feels as all these other films that we talked about today. But it's, again, Christopher, this just says how well of a film director he is, how incredible his films are, that it's just the one film that we would have been oh yeah, that definitely deserves to be off the list. Is no, that needs to be on the list. So that just tells you how great of a director he is. And The Prestige is a really good movie for sure.
Daniel, any comments on Prestige Gate?
It rightfully kicked off. It's that and Dark Knight Rises are the two movies of his I don't like. I think The Prestige starts out as just a dick waving contest between Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale for 2 hours, and then it gets good with the twist. So yeah, I have a feeling I'm not big. I don't have many fans in the chat, but yeah, Prestige, I'm not a fan.
Well, if you want to follow Daniel, all of his links are below, both Twitter and YouTube for sure. No, but in all seriousness, guys, thank you so much for coming back. This has been a blast. I love having you guys on. I'm going to get you guys on again in the future. We'll find a nice topic for you guys to come on and debate. But many thanks over and over again for you joining us. Dan, let's start with you. Dan, all your links are below. Dan has a YouTube channel. Tell everybody what you got going on.
The YouTube channel, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with it, if I want to continue with it or if I want to just move on somewhere else. If you want to follow me,
bump that TikTok.
If you want to talk to me about the Prestige, at Daniel Berrios 93 on Twitter. I also write on shuffleonline.net. And yeah, that's where you can find most of my musings about movies.
And TikTok. You're on TikTok.
Yeah, I joined TikTok at I think it's Daniel the Berrios, and it's spelled the way you see it on screen.
Excellent, guys. Go follow him. Go follow him on Twitter, and he posts out everything he's doing. It's some great stuff. Elliot, let's go with you. Movie Files on Instagram, guys. Elliot's got a great Instagram going. So if you're on Instagram, go follow him on Instagram for sure. Elliot, tell the people what you got going on.
Yeah, again, Adam, it's such a pleasure being on here. Have such a fun time, man. The community you're building over here, the interaction with the audience is incredible, man. So kudos to you, my friend, and hopefully I can be back again, maybe on a horror theme one. I love horror. So yeah, guys,
sure.
like Adam said, I'm on Instagram pretty much every day regarding just a lot of my quick thoughts on films, but most of my energy goes towards my YouTube channel. You can check me out at Movie Files. We don't have any movies at the theater, so streaming has been my go-to right now. So literally, I'm watching almost every weekend, reviewing something on Netflix, movie, TV shows. It can be the big stuff or the small, obscure stuff. I'm talking about it all, so definitely check me out there. A lot of fun stuff on the channel besides reviews. I do a lot of watch-alongs, do a lot of just great stuff, in my opinion, over there at Movie Files, so definitely check me out. And again, man, Adam, such a fun time tonight. Daniel, getting to meet you for the first time, man. It's such a fun time. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you both. You guys,
likewise.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. All right. That's it. That's our show. Thank you guys for hanging out. Make sure go to rank.fanjecture.com. Go vote for next week's Fox X-Men movies. That's going to be a blast, I promise. There's going to be a lot of debates on that one. See us tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know what else to say. I'm leaving now. Goodbye.